You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned Not Given.
All right, guys. Well, this is the third episode of Earned Not Given, and I couldn't be more excited to have the myth, the legend, John Scott Rattan in the house. I'm not sure anyone can see this, but I have like an entire page filled with all of his accolades and all of the things he's done. So bear with me here for a second while I just fill you in on who John Scott is. John Scott's top 100 teacher. He's PGA Section Teacher of the Year. He won in 2021 Rising Star Teacher from Golf Magazine, Best Young Teacher Golf Digest, Best in State Golf Digest, and probably for me, just the best dude. So without further ado, John Scott, welcome to the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to do this. You and I go back a long ways, and there's a lot of respect going back and forth here. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I want to learn a little bit from you too, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man, and we'll get into the times where we spent hours and hours trying to stop you from early extending in the golf swing and the mistakes that we made back then because we didn't know what we don't know now, right? But I want the listeners to understand that I brought you on here because you're just an amazing guy and we go back and we're great friends. But I also brought you on here because you've done something that is amazing, right? You were an amazing junior golfer. You then went on to play professional golf. Obviously, you made it to second stage multiple times and you had that chance to put your name on that tour card and it didn't quite manifest to what you wanted. But then after trying to play pro golf and playing pro golf, but not at that highest level, you then went on to coach college golf. After coaching in college, you went full-time teaching. And in that journey of teaching, you started at Bethesda Country Club. Then you end up at this amazing golf club called Congressional as a teaching pro. And now you're the director of instruction at Congressional. But more impressive than that is the fact that it took me an entire page to fill up the number of tour players in your stable. You've got 5 guys on the PGA Tour, and I think it's really important for you to just highlight those players, right? From Jimmy Stanger to Kramer Hickok to Stuart Sink to Bo Hostler to Joe Bramlett. It's impressive, but that's not where your stable stops. Your stable then continues to 5 guys on the Korn Ferry with David Kocher, Trevor Cohn, Marcus Bird, Thomas Walsh, and Danny Walker. So tell us a little bit about how John Scott built this amazing stable of tour players.
And Davis Lamb, we got Davis Lamb's on the Korn Ferry. Can't forget my man Davis.
Sorry about that. There wasn't enough room on the page, my man.
That's second page. You got to click over one. No, I mean, look, I'm very lucky to work with a lot of the guys that want to play golf for a living. Like when you think about your why as a coach, like working with that type of player, like that gets me going. And it definitely is why I got into coaching is like, when you're working in college golf, you're working with people, they want to be really good at what they want to do. And it's really inspiring to me to see each one of those guys have their own journey of following their dreams. And it's inspiring. It's hard to do what they're trying to do. And so I'm very lucky to work with each and every one of them. I put my heart and soul into it for each and every one of them. It takes there's a lot that goes into it, more so than I ever would have dreamed, to be completely honest. 10 years ago, if you asked me what does it go into teach tour players, I thought it was a very linear process. Like they come to you for a lesson, you say, they get instantly better and they go win. And it's such a different journey than that. And it's been humbling and it's been inspiring and it's made me work harder. And not to sound cliche about it, but you learn more from them, than you're probably teaching them at certain times. You're like, man, I never thought about that. And it kind of opens your eyes of like, yeah, I kind of realized why I stopped playing. It kind of opens your eyes a little bit to that. It's like, I kind of get why I wasn't that good anymore, So it's been a really fun journey and I'm excited for this year. I'm excited to see kind of what happens and where everything goes and go for it.
Yeah, and I think the stable is extremely impressive, right? The type of player that you coach is not just the same golf swing or the same personality, or they obviously all have the same goals and dreams. But how do you approach these 11, 12 players that you have that are all different individuals? Do you have a formula that you use, or is it something separate for each of these guys?
It's definitely a little of both. I wish it was as black and white in that. Like, I'll have a blueprint for each player. I'm not going to, like, blueprint framework. You have to have that type for each player. Some players want to see it. Some players don't want to see it, and you have it, but you're always working off of it. So you can be really different with that. One of the players I coach gets really externally focused when he plays and when he practices, and he doesn't want to know his pressure trace. He doesn't want to know where his vertical. It doesn't really matter to him. What he really wants to know is how to create that feel and that image in his head so he can go compete. There's other people that really want to know, every millisecond in their pressure trace, every Newton, was this one better than that one? Like, they want to really get into it in the gym and really, like, test themselves. And that person, we're going to go through each step. Like, we're going to go through all the P's with them, and they're going to know where they need to be on every time. And I think both are really effective. And you have to know which person you're talking to be fair. And, like, I've been caught off guard with that, trying to give a blueprint to a player that doesn't really want to know all that, and it becomes overwhelming. And then you're like, dang, I was trying to, provide context or do something in a good way and positive way, and it doesn't work that way. I think it's really cool to work with a guy like Davis. I've taught Davis since he was a freshman in college, like maybe between the summer of his senior year to freshman in college, and to see the progression that, from an 18 or 19-year-old to a 23, 24-year-old. He won twice on the Canada Tour last year. And it's just to see, like, that progression and how far you go from the skill development part is pretty cool. And, for that player, they had to go through COVID, right? You deal with that. Like, that was a different time as a coach to go through that with a student, because there was a lot in there. But it's cool to go through. Each experience is so different, and you learn so much through each player with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think when we listed all the names of your guys, I didn't have enough space on my paper to talk about all their wins, but your guys are not just your guys, they're getting better, right? Your guys, when I went and looked and drew up my ideas for this podcast, the big thing is that every one of your guys seems to improve their ball striking statistics. It might be because you might have the best 6-iron on the planet yourself, but you also talked about a second ago, like the vertical force or the Newtons or whatever. I think something important for our listeners to understand is you really do an amazing job of collecting data. You don't just go in and say, let me take a look at what it looks like on video, and I have this model golf swing that I believe. So if you could kind of explain how you use technology to not overwhelm the player, but to really help them make their goals and dreams a reality.
I like to say it, and it sounds really simple in my head, but you can never, like, lose sight of what good golf looks like. I know it sounds simple with that. Oh yeah, well, we want people to hit it good, and you want people to not three putt. Yeah, but you have to understand, like, a swing, there's somewhat of a hierarchy on movements. And I think one of the most interesting thing that I've found going to, 2 tour events a month for the last 5 years, let's call it. So you're going to, I don't know how many that would be. Let's call it, I've been to 50 tour events the last 5. Every time you go, you see something and you learn something of, man, like, I wouldn't have taught that. Or on, a seminar I went to said, don't do that. Or you see somebody's grip that's off, or that guy has a double peak, but man, he's one of the best ball strikers going. Or, why does Tony Finau's, like, right ankle stay on the ground so long? I thought we were supposed to launch and spin. And you learn things of what works and what doesn't. But you can never lose sight of what good golf is, or what a good move looks like, and what ball control looks like. On that same sense, I think I do a pretty good job of diagnosing the difference between a symptom and a disease. Mm-hmm. And you try to, like, very early on, get the one thing that affects the 4 or 5. And when you do that, you can create this plan for the player of, like, okay, like, let's call it a reverse spine. Let's say a player has too much extension at the top. That's going to create it's a macro movement, I would call it, and that's going to create 3 or 4 compensations the player has to do. Maybe they hang back through impact. and they're working on not hanging back their impact, but they're so left at the top, like you're never really going to fix it. You got to give them incentive. And I think it's one of the strongest things as a coach you can do is to provide a player incentive to want to do something. And when they have an incentive, it becomes their idea, and it becomes really powerful. And that's when you're really starting to get to like you're hitting the nail on the head. Like as a coach to player, when they start coming to you being like, man, what if I turned my hips more on my backswing and got into my left side earlier? And you're like, yes, because you didn't have to tell them, but they got there in their own way. And so when you're really addressing the symptom versus the disease, you can do that. I use a Swing Catalyst dual plate. I use TrackMan. I've been using Dr. Mule's 3D system for a long time. I have a 4D Motion Sports. Like I have all that. Just spent a day with John Sinclair in Texas looking at Motion to Coach, which I think, God, that's going to be amazing when it's all said and done. It's amazing now. And the guys behind it are incredible. So it's going to be at your fingertips as a coach. Like you're going to have all the info. The AI is going to say, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. I think there's a lot to some instincts that you have as a coach and a player and a field. You got to be able to communicate that. And, when you go to a tour event, the last thing you want to do is give them something new on a Wednesday. You don't want to be on a Wednesday just throwing stuff at a wall being like, hey, like think about it this way. Like you want to have built that in to your framework. So you're talking about the symptom and the disease to it. So the player has a really good understanding of it. You build in the couple, technical drills you want to call them, and then you're always getting better, but you're also like hitting the nail on the head and getting better that week too. So you got a long-term and a short-term kind of look at it.
I love that. And I love the macro movement concept. I love the disease and symptom concept. The fact that you've been to so many tour events and you have so many tour players and you understand what good golf looks like, do you see some commonalities between the players that are at that top 25, top 30 level versus the players that are a little bit below, and then maybe on the developmental tours like you talked about, your guy Davis, it's made it up? What are those commonalities that you think allow a player to ultimately be contending in major championships versus trying to get their tour card?
I think a lot of them have dominant ball flights. Okay, so I was Bo lives in Scottsdale, and we in our off-season training we played with John Rahm, and it was my first time seeing John up close. Obviously you've seen him hit a ball, but to see him up close and seeing how good he is and what he does, it was pretty enlightening to see. And you could see a very dominant fade bias in what he wanted to do. He played a bigger curve than I would have thought. If you just had asked me how big does John Rahm curve it, I'd be like, I don't know, yard, do whatever you want, best player in the world or something. But to see him do that in person was pretty cool. And they have dominant ball flights. I wouldn't say they don't try to work it both ways. I'm not going to pigeonhole players into that, because I'm sure he's going to try to hit a draw every now and then, or into a right to left win, he's going to hold it up against it, something like that, or a left to right win, he might draw it against it. I don't know. But a lot of them have really dominant ball flights. Like Colin Morikawa is a pretty dominant fade bias, and Justin Thomas, pretty dominant fade bias, even though how often Justin tries to work it, right? But they all have their shot that they kind of rely on. I think that's why Joseph's one of the best ball strikers. If you look at his statistics over the last 4 years, he gets better every year, and he's owned that he wants to hit a start left fade. And he's really good at hitting little baby draws, and he's really good with his wedges. And I think a lot of them have dominant ball flights. I'm going to say that also on the other side, they're able to work the ball too, but they know every day, okay, when I go home, and I'm going to work on my dominant shape. I also don't think they switch a lot. I think, Colin Morikawa switched this year with Mark, and they're doing an amazing job. I don't think a lot of them change coaches and do a lot of that. I really don't. I don't see that. I could be way out. Billy Horschel doesn't change a lot. You can go down the list of it. But I all think they have some type of ownership, deep ownership and understanding of what they do when they play their best. And when it doesn't feel off, there's no stone left unturned to figure that part out. And I respect that. It's hard. It's not easy to do. But I would start there, and they all have, we haven't even talked about the short game. We haven't talked about any of that stuff, but I think they have dominant ball flights. They don't change a lot, and they have this big DNA. They have this belief in this DNA of what they do when they play well, and they try to do more of that.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think you're absolutely right. The the top guys aren't changing that much, whether it's changing the team or it's changing the process to play their best, right? A lot of these guys, and I'm sure you're doing it with your players, they're going back and they're looking at the 3D data, the TrackMan data, the force plate data for when they play their best, right?
There was a great thing online the other day with Charlie Hoffman, who's played really well recently. Did you see that with Mark and Greg? And they measured his grip, and his grip was 20 degrees different. And, I thought that was just amazing that sorry about that. I just thought that was amazing. Charlie Hoffman checked his grip. He was, 20 degrees weaker than where he was, 2 years ago when he was playing his best?
Yeah.
And the fact that they have those measurements, and then, I thought what Mark said was brilliant. He's like, look, if you're thrusting, why would your grip be strong? Because you'd hook it. So you probably erred towards the weak side. And, and you see Charlie Hoffman shoots 20 under a couple weeks ago. It's just fascinating stuff, and I think that's what they're doing.
Yeah, and I think that's why you've become such incredible coach, is because you have that data. You don't overwhelm the player with the data, but it's there to call back on to see, how do we get you back to where you were, or how do we avoid falling into that rabbit hole, right? Like when you walk the tee at Congressional or you walk the tee at a PGA Tour event, it looks very different, right? I'm sure walking the tee at Congressional, you got every member in the world trying to coach their friend, trying to tell them how to do something. And it seems like every day they're trying something new. Whereas your guys, sounds like they're sticking to the same drills, same protocols.
What I like to tell them is getting better doesn't mean getting different. I think getting different is a really easy thing to do. Is I'll try it this way, I'll try that way. Getting better doesn't look like that. And I think one of the common things I see, like out of the really successful people that I've been around, and I would love to hear what you think about it, is like the fear of failing or looking like an idiot in front of someone for doing something like a drill a certain way. There's not a lot of that. They're like, if it feels this way and I have to do it, I'll do it. And there's not a lot of fear of the outcome very early on. And if you want to make a swing change, it's probably going to feel awkward. It shouldn't feel good. Like the goal isn't in the lesson to make it feel good. The goal is to like change the movement, create awareness of it, and then like move on. Like another example I would use, and I hope this is correct. It makes sense in my head, so I'm gonna go with it. But like when you're working out and say you're doing bicep curls, like is your bicep getting stronger during the workout? No, it's getting weaker because the muscle is breaking down. But everyone thinks I'm going to work out to get stronger, right? But it's actually breaking the muscle down. You're actually getting weaker. And then the muscle grows after time and recovery, and it grows. So it's like, I use that analogy a lot. And, a practice session shouldn't make you feel good.
Yeah, I think that's incredible. And I love the use of the bicep example of like soreness after a workout means you did something, right? And I think for me, like that fear of failing, probably for the average recreational golfer, for me, right, in the world that I'm in with elite juniors, they're worried of, I can't take a step back to go forward. Whereas at the tour level, with the players that you're seeing every day, they're worried if they don't take that step, what that could mean to their future.
Yeah, you got it. And it's a great, in a way, it makes coaching like a college player really difficult because got 2 seasons. Like you get me started on, I think college golf season's way too long. Like I'm on the outside as a coach, as a coach at a private club now, where I get guys that come in for like 2 weeks in the winter, and they got qualifying January 15th, and you're trying to work on a move that's going to help them be better when they play pro golf, and it's really hard to do that because they're going to go and qualify and be like, well, I don't want to feel like an idiot when I qualify, or maybe that's too strong of a statement, or that I don't want to hit it bad in qualifying. And they probably don't go as far in on the changes you need to get done. And it just kind of like development wise probably doesn't help them. Competitive wise, it's great, and then even with junior golf, with the amount of pressure some of these guys and girls are on very early on to get recruited or get their rankings up or get AJGA stars, it gives you a lot of respect for the people like, have you seen King Richard and how the Williams sisters were raised? Like, like they put their development at ahead of a ranking, and it's not easy to do. And it just makes it harder.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're out there week in and week out, and with your stable, how many of the stable that you have? Obviously, we all remember Bo Hosser playing, as a 16-year-old in the U.S. Open and doing pretty good. But how many of these other players that you're coaching would you say were standout, like superstars at a young age?
I don't know. That's a good question. Let me think. Stu, I would say they all showed signs of being really, really good, right? Like Jimmy Stanger was a All-American and got first team All-American. Like that guy, he was awesome. Thomas Walsh on the Corn Fair, he won ACCs. Like you kick him butt. David Coker was one of the best players ever at the University of Maryland in the Big Ten. Like all Big Ten selection, 3 times. Like awesome golfer. Davis Lamb. Man, he made it to the round of like 8 in the USAM. So every single one of them, and I don't want to leave anyone out, but just in a quick setting like that, like every single one of them at some point, or else they wouldn't be doing it, right? They wouldn't have felt like inside that, hey, I can do this. They need to have you need to have some type of saying to yourself, like, man, I'm pretty good at this. You have to draw back on those moments, and everyone would have said at every point, like, I'm pretty good. Like, Davis Lamb won the Maryland State Open when he was in college. So he knew very early on, you can call it as a 20-year-old, pretty good. I don't know how good I am yet, but like, I want to keep doing this because I'm good at it and I love it and I love competing. And I would say that's very much the same for, Joseph was the youngest player ever to play in a USAM. And he was my first USAM at Oakland Hills when I was 21 was his first one. He was 13 maybe. So it puts it into perspective of like, I was pretty proud to get there as a sophomore in college, and I don't even think he was in high school yet. So they all probably did something very early on that told them in their like deep sense of self, like, I'm pretty good and like I like doing this and I want to get better at it. But that's not saying that they were all the number 1 ranked junior ever. Like,
yeah, and you also, sorry to interrupt you, but you also didn't say, oh, they were the 5-time winner of the Pinehurst World Championship, right? It was more, hey, they kept going. They had this desire, right? Obviously, we all know, like, it would be amazing if every player that we coach was intrinsically motivated, right? But some of those external factors really do help. So you start to see success and you start to play well. And lucky for a lot of your guys, they found you in that journey where they were still malleable and you could still create these habits that allow them to get to that next level. I guess to pull on what you were just saying before, I don't know where you're going to take this, and that's what's exciting for me. But like when you talk about these players have some commonalities or they have this drive or they never forget how to play, but then you were talking about that college player example where they come in and they see you and they only have a couple weeks to train before the season starts. Well, you have a huge stable of guys that every week they're playing to put food on the table. So how do you build the year for your players? Obviously, I'm sure it's different for every player, but are there times in the year where you're really going deep and other times where you're maintaining?
Yeah, like, it's a great question. You have to be strategic with it. For on the PGA Tour, you have to take advantage of your off weeks, and it gets really hard when, especially with where the FedEx Cup points are right now, and you got these. Every week feels like if you're not playing, you're probably missing out, right? Like, and you want to get in these signature events. So you see it on both levels. You see, like, Bo is 12th on the Aon Swing 10 or whatever. That gets him into Bay Hill. Right? Like, he's had a pretty good year. He's had 2 top 10, a top 15. He's played pretty good so far. Hasn't missed a cut, but to get into Bay Hill, he's got to play. Like, you can't just take off. You got to play to get in the next one and then get in the major. So there's always like some level of qualifying, no matter where you go in golf. So you got to be really strategiks with your weeks off, and you have to understand that sometimes rest means getting better. And the recovery means like you might not be on the range, but you're working on your golf by resting. And there's a big piece of the puzzle. For those guys, the travel and the wear and tear on your body, like it hurts. A good example, I think, what week was it? During Pebble Beach, myself and Jason Glass, he works with Joseph, he's his trainer. We went out to spend, 3 days with Joseph on an off week, because I know Joseph, he works his best on his off weeks, and I want to take advantage of those. And throughout the year, we're going to, schedule a little bit in advance on the off weeks on when we know he's not going to be playing, or like the Olympics is this year. I know that's towards the end of the year, or there's an event that he's not going to play in. Like, you take advantage of those, and you want to do as much as you can in the off weeks to maybe sprinkle in or drip. Jason, I like to call it, you drip in something a little bit new. And then during the year, during the other weeks, you just keep dripping. You keep dripping. It's not like a faucet. You don't just throw it all at them. It's just like a little drip here, a little drip, a little drip. But you really take advantage of those off weeks. Jimmy is a great example. Jimmy going through some equipment stuff at the moment and trying to get the right shaft for the club head, because his delivery has changed just a little bit. And his 2 off weeks, the last weeks, have been really valuable for that. So you got to take advantage of them. It's really hard. And in college, to me, college is even harder in a certain regard, because it's remote, right?
Yeah.
You're doing FaceTime lessons, and you have some of the guy. It's hard, and the things they need to do probably are maybe a little more difficult. And to find those little 1% nuggets that keep helping a player get better, which could be getting to the putting green 20 minutes before and actually starting their putting warm up for their full swing warm up, and then going back to putting so their speed's better that day. Those little things, they matter, and they go a long way over the course of a year. And it's like a lot of my thought process as a player was like, hey, there's so much heavy lifting going and getting. I was always looking for this major, if I just take the putter head out a little bit more, I'd be, you're looking for these major nuggets, where it might just be the opposite of that. And it's a lot of little things that add up that all of a sudden, make you work better.
No doubt. And that's amazing. The little drip. I love that. And then you shared an amazing nugget there that I want to pull on. Obviously, Jason Glass is the man, right? And you also have players that work with a lot of different people, right? So how do you build this team around your player, and what role do you take in that team? Obviously, some teams you're joining after they're established, some teams you're building. So if you could just explain, right? Because to the average golf fan, they watch an event, and the only event in the world that you don't get to see it at is Augusta, because they do an amazing job of saying only one coach is allowed on the range at a time. But some of these events, there's 8-9 guys around them. So what talk to us about the team approach.
Yeah, I love the team approach to it. I think, I love working with Jason. I think he's awesome at what he does, and being able to provide the player hey, this is how we need the club to move. We can use the performance coaching to get the body to work in the way we need the club and the body to move, and then protect you from from injury. Sorry. And it's only stronger when you got 2 guys or 3 guys or 4 guys in your corner to help you do that. I think it provides a lot of value to the player. And then as a coach, there's times you feel like you're on an island, right? It feels like you're you want to feel like you can talk to somebody and say, hey, I'm seeing this. What do you think? And that's on your team. That's, has the player's best interest in line. I grew up going through Greg Rose was my, I saw Greg for the first time when I was 15. He trained me when he was working out gymnasts in the Olympics, and,
Pre-TPI right there in DC,
right?
Yeah. So a lot of people don't know that. TPI had a big Maryland background. Dave Phillips was at Caves Valley, and Greg was, in Rockville, Maryland, where, I grew up, and I still, I passed the old TPI every day going to work. So I grew up in that, hey, you have this team around you, and we go to TPI to get captures of all the players that are on Titleist staff. So you have that data to go back on. So if I have a question, if a player's battling something, or you want to, go back to or refer to the data, you have it, and you need that as a team. it only helps the player be more confident in what they're doing. And at the end of the day, what you want to do is help that player. That's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to keep them healthy, provide a level of, I don't want to say service, provide a level of coaching that gets them more confident to go out there and follow their dreams. So when they're playing, there's no searching.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. And getting players to play better isn't just always about what it looks like at P4 or P5, right? A lot of times it's about how they understand themselves and how they handle the adversity, how they lean into opportunities. So how do you collaborate and how do you bring in someone from the mental performance side to your teams?
Yeah, not all of the players that I work with have somebody they talk to on the mental side. I think half of them do, half of them don't. At some point, I'm sure all of them have talked to somebody or used a sounding board as an old college or somebody or their caddy. That's something we haven't talked, like the caddy coach relationship, super important. Again, I'm really lucky. All the caddies that work with my guys, like they're amazing caddies, and they're on the front lines. They're seeing every shot, and as a coach, you've got to be able to tell the guys what you want to work on all fronts. Like, what we're working on, what Zach and I are working on in our swing, and the caddy can reinforce it. Like, then when you talk to the caddy, like everyone's talking the same language, and I think that's really important for the player to know all of his teams are rowing in the same direction, and it's no different from the mental side. Again, I'm really like Julie Elion is like a mentor of mine. I've known Julie for 30 some years now. Maybe that's 30's high, 25 years. So Julie's from Washington, D.C. I grew up caddying at the club called Columbia Country Club, where I grew up taking lessons, and I ended up working there. And that's where she plays her golf. And so I knew her when I was playing, and she helped me when I was playing. So she's amazing at what she does of looking at the whole person and the stuff she's done. I'm so glad that her star is being recognized, now, because I've known it for so long, and the people that she's helped, and not just in golf. Like, if you really got into it, not just in golf, the people that she's, not at liberty to say all the names that I would know, but like the people that she's helped and shaped, like, it's incredible. So the work she's doing with Justin Thomas and Max Homa and, Ches Reavy, it's incredible to see that. So you're working with, everyone's playing a certain role to help this person that in front of you that is chasing their dream. And you just want to provide the best level of coaching and support to do that. And it's an all-in proposition. It's not an anytime, it's an all-in thing. But that's how I take it, at least.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think for the listeners to really understand, like, your journey through your own personal development put you close to certain people, right? And that proximity to certain people definitely shaped you, right? Julie definitely maybe at times is thinking about, hey, when John Scott was calling me when he was 16, 17 years old, trying to figure it out, some of those same philosophies and principles she might be applying to Max Homa or Greg Rose, right? When you saw him before TPI became what it is today, you were at the forefront of that. And I think that's really special. I don't think any of our time hitting balls at the academy put you on the trajectory you're on. But I do think that I would like to talk about some of the things that when you played and then you evolved into coaching, what are some of those things that when we were hanging out are now completely wrong?
Well, that's a great question. And I never had a lesson growing up. This isn't a knock on a teacher. I just know hitting it far wasn't part of you didn't want to hit it short. Let's put it that way. But it wasn't like, hey, how can we make this boat go faster? That wasn't part of the question. For me, it was very much, you had pictures. You had Tiger Woods of 2000 or you had Nick Faldo. That's basically kind of the framework. And you were like, all right, well, this is what they do. Don't copy Tiger's left foot snaps a little bit too much. Don't do that part. But do the, his club works like this. And it was very much, draw a line on a TV and You couldn't see the club face. You didn't have a TrackMan. Nothing was measured. So like, the very first time I was at TPI, or I guess it wasn't TPI, it was Greg's a chiropractor at Hart, Greg Rose. I had all this stuff on, and I hit 15 drivers, and you had to wait like a week to get a report back. It wasn't just right there being like, hey, your kinematic sequence is off. It's like you wait a week, and then you go in and you're like, oh, I think that we can take this reading. This one wasn't a good reading, like the sensor move. We'll look at it this way. And I feel like you might need to, can you do a deep squat? It was like, that's kind of where we were. And I worked so hard at making my swing look in a position. On my swing, it's probably why it looks good, but it doesn't go very fast. But I can, I was hitting balls on my swing catalyst trying to experiment the other day, and it's like I can get the path to zero like pretty good. I can hit it straight, but to make it go faster, it's really not in my DNA. And very early on, I didn't learn that. It was, can you get the ball to do this? And as a player, I really looked at 2D and like how the swing looked on a camera is the club I'm playing is my butt on the wall. I mean, that, like, yeah. And my solutions weren't very good for that. My solutions, I was working on getting the club face more open, trying to keep, I was literally trying to get the face, my left wrist more extended, the face more open at the top of my backswing to try to like gain depth in my pelvis. Like I wouldn't do that. I would not do that right now. I would get the face more closed and get more flexion to get more depth in my pelvis and symptoms and diseases. It just wasn't happening like that. So I approach that has a huge influence on my coaching, you don't take that approach from it very often. That was definitely one thing I got caught up in.
Yeah, I think it's amazing too, right? Like for us to remember, like for all the listeners, maybe Casey will put a 6-iron swing of you in here, but it was amazing. And I can remember it was like that Casio camera that we would just go back and forth on looking at it. And it was like, hey, when I arrived and we started working together, you knew that I had a background in TPI too. So it was like this exciting thing of like, how can we do it? And at that time, I don't think we really understood that to keep that depth of your pelvis through the shot, we actually had to almost lose it in the downswing to then have that force coming back. And that's what's cool about you is that you're always evolving, right? You're always trying to get better because you're trying to cultivate these players, and you're not afraid to say that, hey, I don't know, let me reach out to somebody else. You actually almost want to, right?
Yeah, like I'm almost too much in that way, and I'm working on it. But it's like I was just on the phone with John Dunnigan this morning, asking him questions on how to read a graph, and I was up, I was taking a class this morning on my computer at 5:30, just because I want to learn different ways to coach this stuff, and I want to have my knowledge base so deep in it that like I'm able to present it to a student in a way that's not super complicated. Or when I see something, I can get it. I can make the correct first play call more often. Like I think as a coach, you're trying to make the first call the best, the soonest, and the deeper level of understanding you have of it, it can take you in a rabbit hole of, man, we don't really know what we're measuring because at some level there's some bias in some of it. But I get really, what's the quote? I'm going to get the quote wrong, but it's like if the people that ask the most questions are probably the ones to trust, and the people that think they know it all, they need to. There's a quote in there somewhere of that, and I'm much more on the end of like I need to get better at what I do. Like there's so much more I want to learn and how to help, and I think that's what makes our game and coaching such an unbelievable thing. Is you could have a player in and give them a feel of how to move their body different, and it totally changes the club delivery, and all of a sudden like they start hitting off the middle of the face, and it's like kind of magical, right? And like as a coach, you always strive to get to that, like, all right, well, this person comes in, I can give them this little nugget, and they play better and they enjoy the game, and we're always trying to get there. But I'm definitely much more on the side of I don't know it all. I'm trying to learn it all. I also think that helps you as with your players. Is like if you come to me and I can't help, we'll go together. We'll find the answer out. We'll go to TPI and Greg, and we'll talk about something that's not happening, or we'll bring in Jason and, hey, why can't we get into our right hip on the backswing? Like, oh, well, your ankle is not in the right. You don't get it. Your ankle's too pronated and you're on the outside of your foot, right? And or so those are the things that you're trying to figure out.
I think it's amazing that you are what I would call a transformational leader, right? To your players, you're doing the things that you're asking them to do. You're putting in the work. You have the daily habits to, right? You're not playing for a living anymore. You're coaching for a living, and you're putting in the work. You're doing, as you described earlier, the little things that make a difference. And that's why your entire stable is so lucky to have you, because you're not the guy that says, trust me, I did it, or I know it all. You're the guy that says, hey, let's go on this journey together and see where it takes us.
Yeah, like I definitely try to take that approach. I don't think of it that way, like in my head. Like, I appreciate you saying that. Like, but that's not how I think of it. I think of, like, yesterday we have a week off, and Thomas Walsh, I want to make sure that, you know, he's doing the right things in his drills. So we're FaceTiming him in between lessons to make sure, like, his arm plane isn't too in front of him, and he's getting enough AP force or push back in his left toe and his left foot and his left side, so he can not slide on it. So it just drives me. Like, I just want it. That's what drives me. And I want them to know that, like, I mean, I'm all in, and I think they feel that. A player feels that, maybe to the detriment sometimes. But, like, they need, I always felt like they need to, I want to provide the player to know that. It's always been a driver to me of, they're not in it on their own, and if they need help, like, I'm here. If they don't, and sometimes needing help is staying away too, right? Sometimes needing help is giving them space, and that's tough too. But I always try to take that mindset to it. It's tough though.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. And obviously what you've done with Bo is extremely impressive, right? He's
so look, like, Bo's was a great, Bo's a great golfer. Bo's a great golfer well before I met him. Like, Bo was always going to be an amazing golfer. Bo's golf IQ through the charts. Like, Bo knows, Bo knows, that sounds like a Bo Jackson, but, like,
Bo knows.
but he literally knows, like, what it feels like when he's playing well and what it doesn't. And he's been amazing to work with. Again, he's somebody that I would tell you I've learned as much from him as possible. And it's inspiring to watch what he does on a daily basis to try to, like, be the best player he can be and the stuff he goes through. But Bo was a great golfer well before he met me, and he's going to be a great golfer way after me. I'm happy to be a part of, you know, and have a chance to help him. And I know in the last, like, year that we've worked together, like, he's gotten better. He's hitting the ball better, and he's got good intentions. Like, that's the key thing. Like, when he goes to the course and he goes to practice, like, he's working on the intentions are in the right spot. It's not, I'm going to try this, to, like, he's on it. And I'm proud of that. And it's fun to watch.
Yeah. And I think intentions in the right spot is why you're in the right spot. Your intentions are always to help the player, not to put another plaque on the wall for some accolade that you win, or to be deemed one of these amazing things, right? You, day in and day out, just want to do right by your players. And it's really inspiring, man, to see you come from the guy when we first started hanging out that was still chasing the dream to play, and to now being able to take some of these players and bring them to their dreams, and to other players. Like, you have, you know, Bo and Stewart are part of the stable that you're kind of helping them have that resurgence to their career that they want. It's amazing, man.
It's really cool to see somebody like Stewart, who's won, you know, $50 million out. You know, he's an amazing golfer, and he's one of the older guys out there. And Jimmy's a rookie, right? And to see, like, the 25-year career in the first year, and it's pretty cool to see both ends of it and see why. I mean, why one, like, Stewart's incredibly successful, and I think he still has a lot to, like, he still has a lot of golf in him. And I'm excited to see that, but it's cool to see as a coach, like, man, this is why this guy's so good. Like, he does a lot of really good things, and it's cool to see that.
Yeah, well, I don't know if you realize it, but you attract just great humans a part of your stable, and it's probably because you're a great human. But Stewart's been amazing. I had the privilege of being inside the ropes with him at the 150th, and he took my guy under his wing and made him feel amazing, and probably spent more time on that Friday when Aaron was trying to make the cut in his first major helping Aaron than he did help himself, and that's just amazing.
I can totally see that. from like I can totally see that, and it speaks volumes for him. It's why he won the Payne Stewart Award. It's why he's so, he's so respected. And even Kevin Kisner, a Georgia guy, like on the waste management. I don't know if you watched that. Kevin was doing the 16th hole, and Stewart hit one to like 3 feet, and even the Georgia guy said nice things about him. So you're doing something right when a Georgia guy can give a Tech guy compliment.
Yeah, it's amazing, right? And because you're so successful, you've got a lesson book that's stacked up, and I know we got to let you go. But first off, thank you so much for your time. You're amazing. Every time you and I get to just pick up the phone and nerd out about golf swings, it's a privilege. I think everyone listening now has a better understanding of not just how you approach it, but how they should really look at the symptoms and then figure out how to do those micro movements, how they should be aware of their intentions. But obviously we call this thing earned, not given. So to put you on the spot, for you and your players, what does earned, not given mean?
Confident. When you said confidence is earned, and it can be earned on the practice range. It can be earned from, birding the last hole to make a cut. It can be earned from winning a tournament, but it's definitely confidence to me. Is when I hear that, it's like confidence, something that's earned. I can't just say, "Hey, Zach, you're a great coach." Like you're going to earn it through years and years of whether it's studying or whether it's a student, a success story. It's confidence is what I think of when I hear that.
Amazing, man. Well, I'm so proud of you to have earned your success, and so proud of you to help these players, and probably more excited for these players that they have such an amazing guy in their stable. I feel proud to say I earned the right to be your friend. So thank you so much for the time, man. We'll let you go crush it. We'll be following you, and don't be a stranger to the pod. We'll get you back on here. You have one of the most impressive lists of players, so we're going to hold you to it. You get one of these guys to win. We'll bring you back on. We'll pop a little champagne together.
Yeah, done. Deal. Thanks, dude. I appreciate
Awesome,
you,
man.
And we'll take care, okay? Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it, buddy. Take care, man.
You want to see how we do it in the pros?
Changing your swing is about repetition without repetition. You don't just hit 500 balls with this thing and change your swing. You also don't just hit 500 balls without a thought.
Welcome to Earned, Not Given.